and welcome to MorningFile. I'm your host, Emma McCarty, and today I am joined with TJ Charlton and Becky Katz from Center 3. So could you guys maybe just start off with a little bit of background on Center 3, what it is, how you guys got started?
So Center 3 is a nonprofit artist-run organization based in downtown Hamilton on James Street. We've been around since, I think, 2003. We began under the moniker The Print Studio, and then it's kind of snowballed from there. So we began as like a small printmaking exclusive center that was kind of put together by a collective of printmakers and artists. They had kind of amassed this gear and made a studio space in which other artists and printmakers could kind of pay to access the facilities. Over the years, we've expanded. So our brick and mortar building at 173 James Street North has 3 artist studio spaces. So there's a traditional printmaking studio, screen printing studio, and then a digital lab. And then we also have a pretty wide and far-reaching community arts and arts education kind of outreach programming that we do throughout the city and beyond. I guess that's a tidy synopsis.
Obviously, everyone has had to adapt a bit with everything that's going on in the world right now. What have you guys been doing during the pandemic?
I mean, we've closed our physical studios 3 or 4 times now. So we've only probably been open to the public for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months for the entirety of, I guess, the past, 14 months. Yeah, so it's been a lot of ups and downs. A lot of our, we have a lot of simultaneous projects that we do. As a nonprofit, we're constantly applying to grants and kind of running these various different projects. So there's been a small handful of core staff members that have still been working largely remotely. So it's a lot of tons of screen time.
Yeah.
So we still do all of the programs. It's just on digital platforms now.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting shift over to that. Speaking about your programs, you guys have started a digital literacy initiative for seniors. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we had secured a Canada Council for the Arts digital strategy funded project called Direct Message, which the grant was submitted pre-COVID. Obviously, and basically our goal with that is that we were aware based on stats that a lot of older adults within Hamilton are not really accessing a lot of the arts events that were happening. For example, the James Street North Art Crawl, or a lot of our like exhibition openings, etc. And we were kind of aware that a lot of it has to do with like mobility issues or access to reliable transportation and a myriad of other factors that play into that. So what we had proposed is to develop some sort of digital system that will ultimately provide engaging and accessible arts-based programming to older adults from the comfort of their home. So we got the grant and we started rolling with it, and then pandemic happened and we were basically forced to reevaluate and kind of switch everything over. So what was essentially supposed to be a community arts project where we are going to work with older adults to kind of co-design and develop in person through arts-based workshops, this sort of digital platform. We couldn't actually do that given that we're working with the most vulnerable population right now. So everything's been transitioned to online. And then the real hang up with that is when we're trying to reach a demographic that's been kind of excluded from the digital fabric to begin with. We're trying to do everything mediated through these screens and through digital devices. We realize that there's like a large gap in terms of this like basic digital literacy that's required. And I mean, we're seeing it across the social services broadly in that you go to Service Canada now, everything needs to be, you need to go on a computer and like access it there when a lot of folks don't have devices or access to reliable internet connections, et cetera. So people are kind of being excluded from, the digital landscape, right? So through we kind of, rolling, a few months into the Direct Message project, COVID, we realized that we kind of needed to build these foundational digital literacy stepping stones. We're calling it digital literacy, but it's not covering the whole gambit of digital literacy. It's not like we're teaching word processing or things like that. It's basically all under the umbrella of creative practices, or like how can we get folks to kind of be comfortable using their devices and to be able to contribute to cultural culture broadly, whether it's taking photos, creating their own videos, et cetera, et cetera. So actually through a New Horizons for Seniors grant, we had secured, I guess Becky can probably chat about this more, but we kind of did a peripheral scan of what kind of resources are already out there now, specific towards like seniors or like basic digital literacy or like training tutorial videos that are out there, videos and resources, et cetera. And we realized they're like extremely lacking. They're either like super, super long, inaccessible, or like really just boring and dry. So we decided with the funding that we received to kind of make our own pretty short, accessible video tutorials to hopefully get folks comfortable. And we're calling it like digital empowerment, so that folks can kind of be able to participate.
And be more socially connected, because without these platforms during a pandemic, it's so difficult to feel connected to others.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it wasn't exactly what you guys had in mind, but when the pandemic happened, you had to shift. And this is like such an important thing to have during the pandemic. Seniors are at home, often by themselves, and so they can go on and learn a bit and connect with the arts, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do wholeheartedly believe in kind of the transformative potential of arts and creative practice. So that's kind of why we're grounded in what we do. But yeah, it is inherently challenging too, just doing everything through screens. Yeah,
which I'm sure, everyone's having difficulty with the screens these days.
Totally.
But it's better than nothing. Like when COVID first hit and our programming was all suspended because we hadn't made that transition yet, it was just like heartbreaking to think about all of the participants who usually are engaged with our programming to just all of a sudden not have it anymore. So with the technology, it allows us to remain connected even though it's not in person. So it's the second best option.
Yeah, that's true. I often think about that as like a silver lining, is if this had happened like 1970s, 1980s, like before any sort of technology came out, like we would just be so like even more isolated than people are feeling already. So what has the response been so far to the project? How are people receiving it?
Good question. It's pretty much brand new. We're just rolling it out now. And so we don't know about the response just yet. So we're trying to get some feedback to see what people think of the videos and whether or not they're relevant to them. We don't know. Although we do know that there was a gap in terms of some of our community members who are new Canadians who don't speak English as their first language. And so we organized the translation of a bunch of the videos into Arabic so that new Canadians who speak Arabic have access to these videos as well and feel connected, even though they don't speak English as their first language.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you guys want to talk about, do you have any other projects in the works or that we might be seeing anytime soon?
So we just launched all of the video tutorials on the Direct Message YouTube page. And basically we made, there's a ton of videos because we're aware that a lot of folks have different devices. So we basically grouped it into 4 separate kind of streams. So there's the iOS or like Apple mobile ones, then there's Mac ones, and then there's Android devices, and then there's PC devices. So they're all essentially the same topics, but each one have their own kind of workflow as a result of the device you're using. Ultimately, we're aware that we can't kind of cover everything, but we're trying our best to cover as much as we can. And then, with the Canada Council Direct Message Digital Strategy Project, we are working on developing an online platform, kind of a prototype in which there'll be a bunch of kind of arts-based programming and resources and like chat rooms, kind of open source, video conferencing things in which folks can kind of set up, create an account, and they can log in. And we're kind of grounded in, because a lot of the initial research we've done that has come back is like what is really needed right now is like a means for socialization and a means for skill sharing. So under the kind of arts-based umbrella. We're working on that platform. It's a web-based platform as well, and then we're tinkering with some like hardware prototypes to make it even more easier for folks to access. So simple like keyboard prototypes and cameras and things like that.
Yeah.
So those will start to be launching, I don't know, in the next few months anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so interesting. I never even would have thought about all the different, like creating the videos for all the different platforms, but then it does make it so much more accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fine line in terms of like really trying to not make things overly complicated. Like it's really challenging to make it simple enough, but also with enough information that it's easily understood as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially working with seniors. I used to work at an old age home, and I know that there's a fine line between explaining and then like over explaining things where they get confused. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions that I had for you guys. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
There are a lot of different programs that are happening at Center 3. Like we also run employment programs for youth. So yeah, we don't just work with older adults. We have our hands in all sorts of different pots, really trying to use art as a magical tool of transformation to make everyone's lives better as they are. And another project that's actually going to be very hitting the streets very soon is the Hamilton bike share hubs that are all around the city. They will soon be dressed in artwork that was created through another program that we did with adults with lived experience of mental health and addiction. So keep your eyes peeled for the artwork that's going to be installed across the city on those Hamilton bike share hubs, because those were made by participants of one of our programs.
Thank you so much to Becky and TJ from Center 3 for joining me today. To learn more about their digital literacy initiative for seniors, as well as other projects going on at Center 3, you can click the link below. As always, for more MorningFile content, you can visit cfmu.ca/videos.